Welcome to our Simple Healthy Life podcast, where our goal is to have real, insightful conversations on topics that we find interesting. And today I thought it'd be fun to talk about limiting beliefs, our belief system, where we get our belief system from, maybe even some ways that we can challenge our belief system. So the topic came up. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he threw out there a couple ideas that essentially triggered the heck out of me. I was like, whoa, I don't believe that at all. In fact, I think my immediate response was like, whoa, I think you might be a moron. But I know that's not true because I know he's a very smart guy. So I was like, whoa. I thought about it after the conversation was over. Like, what about the words he was using caused me to really respond that way? And of course, he's my friend, so I wasn't going to just start this big, long argument with him. I just essentially took it back and started to think to myself, why do I feel that way? Why do I feel so passionately on the other side of what he was saying? And what I came up with was something I think we should all recognize. None of our beliefs were initially our own. So everything you think about the world, everything you think about the universe, everything you think about politics, everything you think about religion, everything you think about everything has been installed into you. And many of that's us installing into ourselves, but it's based on the stuff that we learned when we were younger and the environment that we were in when we were younger. And then to take it one step further before I throw my first question out there, I've started to come to this realization that the quote, "There is no truth," when you are exposed to information and over time exposed to enough of the same information, that information becomes knowledge. And as you go about life and you put all your knowledge together, that knowledge becomes wisdom. But essentially, there's no actual truth. So I said a lot of stuff there, but I'd like to throw it out to you. Give me some of your kind of discussion or open-ended points about beliefs.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great topic. So thanks for introducing us to this. Yeah, we were talking earlier and you kind of had, some beliefs, I suppose we'll say, and you kind of threw some ideas out there and you said, I don't necessarily know why I have those or why I hold on to them. And I think it's common for people to have a lot of beliefs that they're kind of unsure as to why they're there, but very rarely do we question that, right? Even the most mild things, I think, are very go unquestioned in some ways. And I have a little story. I think I might have shared it on the podcast before, but it's a very simple one. But I had taken a walk the other day,
Not yesterday.
which is not yesterday, but potentially any other day is up for the grabs there. And it was a little chilly out and I hadn't brought my coat, but I just kind of went for a walk and I went for, one of the local trails that was really nice. I really enjoyed that walk. And towards the end of the walk, I found myself thinking, wow, what a waste of a walk. This kind of stunk. It was kind of cold, right? Which is really I don't know, it's pretty benign. But then what was interesting about that is I caught it. I caught that. And the thing that I caught was it was so cold. And I was like, is it really that cold? I chose not to take my jacket, so it couldn't have been that cold. So obviously this was the other day because it was cold. But then I reevaluated. I'm like, is it really that cold? And I kind of sat there and was like, actually, it's not even that bad. It was just mildly cold. And so then at that point, I was able to reframe and say, actually, no, the walk was fine. I just kind of reacted a little bit to the cold, and then, lo and behold, I enjoyed it, right? But it's it was a little bit more profound to me than the just a simple story, because I had actually caught it and figured that what we first initially think isn't always really true, right? And you had some of these thoughts where you're like, I believe this and I believe that, and I don't really know why. It goes against my value system, right? And I think that's a really important thing when we talk about beliefs and thoughts. Like, what is your value system, and do the thoughts you have contradict that? And so then, are they your thoughts, or are they just the environment's thoughts? To your own point.
Well, the value system itself has been installed.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
They did an exercise with babies, and they proved that there's not a single racist baby out there. It's silly to kind of make light of, but like it's definitely accurate, right? You're not born into this world hating anybody, and by the time you're old enough to decide whether or not you like or dislike somebody, you've already been told who you should or shouldn't like to some degree. So your value system can be at least questioned. And as soon as I say that, there's going to be people that are like, all right, well, maybe I'll check in on the next podcast. I'm done talking. I'm done listening to this, right? But the truth is,
what a hot take. There are no racist babies.
They proved it. Imagine the exercise. They like put them all in the room. They're like, I don't know. Yeah. It's like they're all playing together.
That one looks a little suspicious.
I don't know. He took that block. Took that block from that one. Maybe. Let's write that down. So not a very long study. No, I don't know. But I think what happens is, so I think it's Abraham Hicks said, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. Right? Like, and as soon as somebody comes to you and says like, well, maybe that part of your value system or belief system, I disagree with it, we put our wall up immediately, instantly. I mean, it's been well documented. I don't believe in dinosaurs. As soon as I say that on the podcast, half of the people listening are, I'm going to pretend half are on my side. Right. Half of the people listening are like, Mike's an idiot. There he goes again, talking about dinosaurs, right? But if you were to just question some of the things about this topic that maybe you just take at face value, maybe there's some stuff there, but we won't. We'll go, nope. I know that this is accurate because I heard it enough times and from enough different sources, and my teacher told me, and my dad told me, and my mom told me, and I had a dinosaur when I was a kid, right? All these things. So then that's a simple one, but let's talk about like some really like challenging ones, right? Like, I'm not good enough. I've never been good enough. When I was in middle school, I didn't get the lead in the play. And then I didn't get it in high school either. And now I still want to go for this job, but I know that's kind of like getting the lead in the play. But I already know that I'm not going to do it because, let's face it, I'm not good enough. That's a belief system.
Right.
And there's some things that we can do when we're willing to change, when we're willing to look at it objectively. There's lots of things that we can do. But how do we get ourselves to look at it objectively? How do we say, to take that wall down when we feel that little ping in our heart that holds us down or holds us back?
Right. Well, I mean, I think, you can't escape a prison unless you're in one. We've talked about that. And so you need to know that you have that belief. I'm not good enough. Or, it's another common one. I'm a bad person. Right. Like I hear that a lot, like just in passing. Obviously we don't like dive into the, like a ton of that, but it comes up in habit and behavior development, right? I'm a bad person, or I'm an evil person, or I'm just not good enough, or I don't deserve X, Y, and Z, right?
Or I'm lazy.
Yeah, right. Or I'm just that way. Oof.
That's just the way I am.
That's just the way I am. I hate that.
So the interesting thing about that topic, and I think this is really interesting to me. When people say that's just the way I am, or what they're essentially saying is they've been thinking this way for so long that they don't have any data on whether or not it's true. It just is true, right? Like we have this feeling around things that become true for them. That's just the way I am. Okay. How long have you been this way? When did it start? These are the questions that you'd want to ask yourself instead of just saying, no sense in talking about it. Because one, it gives me this little ping in my heart, and I don't want to do that because I want to avoid that because we want to avoid discomfort. And two, way easier, just the way I am. Right? And definitely, I'll bring up something close to home. Like when you're in a relationship with somebody, and we won't say it doesn't have to be a marriage, right? It can just be a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the friends has a challenge, right? And the other friend is like, well, that's just the way I am. What does that do? It causes the friend that's not just the way he is or she is to say, well, then maybe I would choose to not be around you, right?
Sure.
And there's lots of scenarios like that in our lives where we end up with this belief system that causes our action, that causes our emotions and our thoughts to go away. Then it causes our actions. And then we look around and we're not living the life that we want.
Mm.
But that's just the way I am. Now you're in your own prison. Now you're not getting out of it. Now you're unhappy. You're held back. And then, you know, we talk about the victim mentality all the time. We don't even have to get down there. But then some people choose to play the victim and other people just say, it's unavoidable. It's unchangeable. That's the way I am.
Right. Well, that's why I kind of dislike that thought and those beliefs, even those like, you know, those really insidious beliefs, is because even if those were true, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve X, Y, and Z. I'm a bad person. Like whatever. That's just the way I am. You know, even if those things were true, it still doesn't help to feed into it even more, right? Like you really thought you were a bad person, then why would you continue acting that out? Wouldn't you want to say, well, I believe that I am right now, but I don't want to be. So maybe I do some kind actions, you know, maybe I try and make a difference, right? It just is like, it's a weird thing to me that it's like you resign to your beliefs. And I guess that is true for a lot of our beliefs. We kind of resign to them because they help guide us in some ways. And we you know, I guess if you have a set of belief systems that you've thought about and agreed upon and would like to think are true, then you don't necessarily have to think very much, right? If you think, well, I know that I'm a reactionary person and I'm kind of aggressive and I like conflict and, you know, I argue with people and I pick fights. Well, you don't necessarily then have to do much thinking when conflict arises, do you? You know, you're just I see red, man. I just get after it, right?
Well, all beliefs serve us, right? That's the thing about that we have. They all serve us. Now, do they serve us to the best of our ability? No, of course not. But they do, right? For that particular person, yeah, it puts up enough wall that nobody has to find out that deep down you're actually scared and nervous, right? You put up enough wall enough times, you react in the same way that people will just go, okay, well, I don't really want to mess with that guy because he doesn't seem to want to, you know, discuss things. He just goes right to the end, yelling or screaming or whatever, right? So it's serving that person because it's more likely than not that they've been doing that long enough that they developed that way so that they don't have to talk about their feelings or address that ping in their heart, right? Even the things about like, I'm a terrible public speaker. That thought is just a thought, but it serves us because now people won't ask me to do things like speak in front of people because it makes me scared and I get nervous and I'm afraid. And then, so all of these belief systems serve us. And that makes it even harder to question, right? And especially it's somebody else coming to you and saying, maybe you should question this. So I think this podcast, hopefully we're talking about it in a way where no one's telling you to question your beliefs, but I'm asking you to say, what about me is a belief system that I don't really feel like serves me best? And then I'll even give you some words that you can use for yourself, right? When did I get this? If it's before you can remember, and there's a lot of those, I want you to dig a little deeper. If it's before I can remember, then is it really mine? Right? We just told you there's no racist babies. And I'm not saying anybody listening to the podcast is racist, but there's plenty of things that happen before you can remember that develop your belief system. And it's more likely than not that no one was like actively trying to bring you down or put bad beliefs in your head. But as you grow and as you develop your your mind and your brain, and it's actually being actively grown, your environment is coming at you, and you don't really know what to do about it.
Yeah, yeah. My one of the books that opened my mind, it was kind of terrifying. It was an audiobook, so I think I listened to it once and then was like, all right, this is scary. I believe it was called Desire, and it introduced me to the idea of mimetic desire. And mimetic desire is this very interesting, it's a fact. It's a fact that humans are mimetic in nature, and we do see
What's
that.
that word mimetic mean?
Yeah. Humans are imitating creatures. So we're very social, and so we imitate, right? And you see this with babies especially. This is how babies learn, or toddlers learn so fast, is because they can look at the environment, and all they really know how to do, all their brain is attuned to, is mimesis, is imitation. And so we learn through imitation, and it's really it's quite a challenging concept to assimilate into our brain, because everything we know, every desire we have, is likely mimetic, is likely just you saw someone else who had that same desire. Why do we desire our bodies to be a certain way? Does it really matter to you? Like, if you remove everything in the environment, you're in a vacuum, does it matter if you have abs? No, not really. Like, it doesn't serve a functional purpose. You could argue like strength serves a functional purpose, but leanness doesn't really. Does it matter if you have Jordans or Nike shoes, or does it matter if you wear certain clothes a certain way? It really doesn't matter. Most of our desires are completely non-functional in a vacuum, and so the fact is that they're mimetic, and that's a really hard thing to accept, that you don't even have your own desires. You have all of them. All of them are not even you. They're just your environment saying you should like this, and you should like that, and you should value this, and like gold. Like why do we even use a gold standard? Well, we don't really have a gold standard, but why would we have used gold to trade? I mean, it's not even particularly that rare. It's just someone decided like gold is kind of cool at one point, and then through mimetic desire that blossomed into what it is now. And so, why does it even matter for us to have X number of dollars in the bank beyond a certain amount? I mean, it's all just desire. Why do we need to have multi-level houses and boats and this and that? I mean, all mimetic. And so it was kind of like challenging to me, because there's mimetic desires in like eating disorders, explicitly too, right? Like people desire certain levels, certain physiques, especially, almost always because of mimetic, concepts there, right? Like a century ago, it was desirable to be a little bit more plump, be a bit in a bit bigger of a body, and now it's out. Now it's out. It's not part of it. The fashion trends seem to change every day too, right? Like all these things change, and you're not deciding that. You're just, yeah, that seems cool.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. Yeah. It becomes this. It's like we're talking about all these kind of like big picture things, like taking action, when to take action, when not to take action, and as soon as I start to tell you that like everything you believe wasn't yours, you're like, okay, well, screw it then. Might as well that's just the way I am, right? Yeah. Just might as well be the way I am. Yeah. But for all of us, we have these times in our day that one of our beliefs will come through, and we all have these ones that don't serve us to the best of our ability. And as soon as you get that feeling that says, that's just the way I am, this person's an idiot, that person is, I want you to take a second and just think about it. Just understand it. Even like some stuff like around work, right? Like that's just the way it is. Oh, I just get in my car every morning at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, I show up for work at 7:05. I work until 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. I get in my car and I go home. Okay, why? What belief is that? the belief that this is the way it should be, the belief that that's the way my parents did it, the belief that maybe a real challenging one is like, well, actually, I'm doing better than my parents did, so that's good, right? Because that's what they wanted for me. And how many people listening to this right now had their parents say to them, all I want for you is just to do better than me. Just want you to have more, live a better life. The irony is, like, that's where our beliefs come from. That's that good feeling that, your parents are like, that's true for them. It really is. And it's not wrong. And in fact, if you were to like poll a lot of parents right now, they would say the same exact thing.
Right.
But now here you are. Maybe you are doing just a little bit better than that. Maybe you do have a house where they didn't. Maybe you went to college and they did. I just want you to go to college. Nobody in my family's ever gone to college, right? These are all just beliefs. And then you do it. You go to college and you go, why did I go to college? Well, because I was supposed to. Because that's what was right to do. Never questioning any of these thoughts. Never questioning any of these beliefs.
Right. And then you have kids, and you what do you say? Well, I just want you to have a better life than I did.
Right, 100%. And now I just want you to get your master's. I think it's important you get your master's. And it's not usually wrong, right? It's not. We're lucky to live in an environment with love and people that love you and families that love you, and it's usually for the best. Of course, to your point, in this mimetic environments, like. Who was it that we brought on? Was it Sandy, the grief expert? Right? She talks about like, you saw how people grieve. Right? She saw how the people in her family grieved alcohol, bad jokes. Right? That was a lot like people in my family grieve. I can tell you that. That's how we grieve. Right? But is it right?
Right.
Does it help you? Does it serve you?
Well, yeah, beliefs are almost the same as standards in some sense, or can be interchanged. I think, and obviously when we're talking about like self-improvement kind of things and building good habits and challenging beliefs, whatever it might be, standards come up, and say someone just wants to eat better, right? Say that's the goal for someone. Well, what is the standard around eating, right? What are the standards like, right? What is a non-negotiable for you, right? When you go out to eat, do you always finish your plate because that's what you've always done, and that's
guilty?
Yeah, exactly. Do you always celebrate with food, right?
Guilty.
Yeah. Do you? This one you won't be guilty of. Do you not exercise or move? Do you not do any kind of like sport play kind of thing? Well, you've probably been doing that your whole life. You weren't actually taught those standards, right? I work with some folks who have really high standards and how much they utilize the day. Say, some of them from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. are doing things like work and movement, and then prepping meals, and then taking care of the family, and then working on a side business and whatever. There's people like that who have those kinds of standards. And I'm not necessarily saying this is, one is good or bad, but then there's people who say, yeah, after work, I'm done. My day is over and I'm relaxing, and those are my standards. And, obviously, I don't know what's good or bad right there. I mean,
where do you think those beliefs came from?
Exactly. You're not even questioning that. That's just how I am. After work, I conk out, I'm done. I'm watching TV, I'm making dinner, I'm going to bed, right? Like, I'm not doing anything else. There's a lot of time there. I mean,
what happens when those two people marry each other?
Yeah,
for real. Like, what happens then?
Right.
That's when you have to really ask yourself, is belief even mine? Would I be better served? Would it make better? Would I like my life more if I did some more stuff after work? Or would I like my life more if I dialed it back a few notches? Or how about this one? Some people like to get up early and go to bed early. Some people like to get up late and go to bed late.
Right.
What happens when you have to question yourself to say, is this real? Is this really me?
Right.
Like, is that really what's going on here? Or is it just that's just the way that I was brought up?
Right.
And it served me till now? because I built a nice life around getting up early and going to bed early.
Right.
Makes me happy to do so. And the other person's like, yeah, well, I like being up when no one's awake at 2:00 in the morning, and it's my alone time.
Right.
Is it right or wrong? No, it's not right or wrong. It's just your belief around whether and what the way you should operate your day.
Right. Unquestioned for a lot of people, those little standards, right? Again, it's like that's the whole point of the conversation is really like, these kind of like challenge, these beliefs that we probably should not necessarily challenge, but maybe inquire about, question those things, question those. Why do you operate in the way that you do? Does that serve you, right? Is it a self-serving belief? Is it self-serving for you to hate yourself? I mean, no, right? Easy answer there. Okay, then what do? We practice more serving thoughts, right? So let's talk about that then. Like, how does someone actually like work on those beliefs? You had mentioned like a belief is a thought on repeat, and I totally agree with that. I think it's a thought with some thought on repeat with maybe some energy put into it, right? And I would argue that you have to act in a way that you would hope to eventually believe or experience. And by that I mean if you really thought like I hate myself, well, maybe you should treat yourself as if you did like yourself, right? Maybe just act that way and see what happens.
So the question is, what if the opposite is true? All right, a lot of people would struggle with this one, right? Because I went right for it. I'm not like, well, what if you could like yourself a little? Like, no, just the opposite. Just go with it for a few minutes. What if the opposite is true? What happens then? And explore that for a few minutes. That's one way you can start. Another way you can start is kind of the way you were going down, is like start to soften your words around it. And we talked about the 4 agreements a few different times, right? Soften your words like, okay, well, today I didn't really like myself very much. Well, why? What was the reason? Right? Well, I got out of bed late and I thought I should be getting out of bed early. Okay, well, there's a belief. All right, well, I skipped breakfast and I've been trying so hard not to skip breakfast. Okay, well, there's a belief, right? These are the things that cause you by the end of the day to go, oh, I had a shitty day today. I didn't like myself today. It's all self-induced, all problems that I have. Okay. Like instead of saying lazy, I didn't complete that task. It's not an I am statement. It's I didn't complete the task, not I am lazy. Right? We can change all of these things, but we have to recognize that when we have these thoughts on repeat, we've wired our brain for however long to say, well, this is the next thought, right? Where our brain's always looking for the easiest way through. And we have these thoughts over and over and over again. We want to make sure that we don't just try for an hour. We don't just try for a day. We're not just like, I'm going to try this. Oh, that felt awkward and weird. I didn't like that. That's no good. Nope, out the window. We got to make sure that we're saying, all right, as committed as I was for the last X amount of years to tell myself how much I hate myself, I'm going to start to commit to tell myself that that I don't hate myself, that I just have some challenges that I would like to change or like to overcome. And part of it is this noticing, and we talk about it all the time. Part of it is the noticing, and the second part is the action. And right now, what we're saying is we're doing the noticing for you. We're bringing it to light. We're hoping that you have listened to this and have a little bit of, all right, yeah, okay, I can see a little bit, right? That my identity and my thoughts aren't always me. And now, the next step, soften your thoughts, soften your approach. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Is it even my own? And when you get that ping in your heart, it's like, of course it's your own, stupid. Ask yourself again, where did this belief come from? Is it even my own? And as you continue to go down that path and you start to soften, and that little ping in your heart starts to soften and give you some clarity, you'll start to find out what I'm telling you is true. It's not your own. It never was. You didn't come into this world with it. It came about maybe at a young age, and then it was reinforced through your environment or through your own actions, right? These beliefs become reinforced through our own actions. And then we do these crazy things called emotions, which will heighten these beliefs. But if you just keep asking yourself, Where did this belief come from? Is it even my own?
Mm.
Get past the hard stuff. Eventually you'll come to the conclusion that what I'm saying is true.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can say, what if it's not, what if the opposite is true? Then you can start to work on the other stuff.
Mm.
Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I like the idea of like values, because values are often instilled upon us, but can at the same time be chosen and prioritized, right? So it's a great exercise. This one I've personally done too, many times actually. You take a list of values, right? And they could be all sorts of things. You can Google this, you can ask ChatGPT, like, give me a list of values, right? And they're going to be things like self-compassion and generosity and health orientation. It could be whatever, right? Intellectual pursuit, curiosity, whatever. There's hundreds of values, but get a list of like 100, or maybe narrow it down, 50 top values, right? And go through and kind of like rank them. You know, is it important for you to be a giving person, right? If you were going to choose the top 10 most valuable things to you in this moment after you've kind of sat down and reflected, right? Everything you've learned, everything you've been to comes down to this moment. What are you choosing for your values? And you say, well, you know, I mean, I like being a generous person, but it's not as important as self-compassion to me, right? Or it's not important as empathy or sympathy to me, right? You know, whatever that might be. So you rank them and you have 10, 10 really great ones. And then you can have this list of 10. You can take that with you. And then anytime you feel like maybe it's important to review my list of chosen values, how am I going to act? Am I going to act in accordance with my values or countercurrent to them? Right. And so if you chose self-compassion as a value, which is a very great value for the record, especially when you suffer with the opposite, too little self-compassion, you could just change your priority of values, which is kind of cool. But, nonetheless, you have this and you say, well, you'll get to the end of the day and you're really beating yourself up for X, Y, and Z. And maybe they really feel very compelling to you. Maybe they're not silly ones like I got out of bed later. Maybe they're, I really messed up on a big project that meant a lot to me, right? Oh, I didn't tell my spouse that I love them and we got into a big fight. Maybe they could be really heavy hitting things that kind of went wrong, went countercurrent to your value. You look back and you say, oh, I got my list of values and self-compassion's on there. How do I act self-compassionately right now? And instead of beating yourself up for all that went wrong, you just say, well, there's always the next time. Or, I made mistakes, but I'm human and humans make mistakes and no one's forcing me to be perfect. You have these kinds of little things, but that's a really useful exercise, making that list of values, just kind of choosing and then trying to act more and more in accordance with that. And that could be acting in terms of how you talk to yourself, or that could be acting in how you treat others. But it really is important to treat yourself as if, you are almost external, like your identity is almost external, right? We talked about this too, where if you had a friend who comes around and every time they come around, you're like, hey, Mike, you're an asshole. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you even saying? You're an idiot, right? If you had a friend like that, if we had these conversations and I just like berated you every time, we would not be friends. We would not have these conversations, right? But yet we do it to ourselves all day long and expect that the relationship is good, right? Oh, I can just beat myself up all the time, but I'll feel good about it eventually when I do right. Eventually when Mike comes around, he's going to do the right thing after I've called him an asshole every time we meet. Like it just doesn't work that way. So yeah, I think the values kind of driven mindset is also quite helpful.
I agree. And I think it's important exercise for all of us to go through. Right? I love the idea of using ChatGPT, and not just because I'm trying to tell AI that I'm a fan because it's taken over the world, but because I think it's not something you don't have to put the effort into finding the list. Right? Sometimes there's a good application for this, and this is great.
Yeah.
Just get a list and then look at it objectively.
Mm-hmm.
And again, go back to it. Even when you find the one that's like your favorite, like your number one, like, okay, does this one serve me?
Mm-hmm.
Where did it come from? Did I have a mom or a dad that seemed to be that this is the one they showed me the most?
Mm-hmm.
Or an uncle that I really liked a lot that seemed to be the one that this one, like, where did that come from? And it's okay to question it and ask as you start to go through the process of questioning and asking, especially the easy ones. That's when you can start to go down the process of asking like the harder ones, the ones that ping you in the heart, the ones that just feel like they're true.
Mm.
And the last thing is, it's exactly what you just said. Just take these little actions, give them a shot. You know, try to take one of these little things that isn't like so like demanding of you and doesn't cause this massive reaction, and just question it. I think what you'll find is what we've been saying the whole time is true. It was never you. It was always, even if you've lived that way for as long as you can remember, it still was never you. So that's a interesting one for today, I thought.
Yeah.
I appreciate you talking about it with me.
Of course, yeah. Always interesting. Yeah. So more challenging of the beliefs, or at least questioning them. You know, do they serve us? That's a great question. Is this self-serving? All right. So we'll leave you with that. All right. We'll catch you next time. Give us a like, a follow, a interaction of some sort on Spotify and all the things, because that's, I don't know, that's kind of fun. So do that if you enjoy, and then we'll catch you next time.